Hello, welcome to another Stat 432 video. In this video will serve as the usual Welcome to Week 12 video, but largely what I'm going to do is sort of talk through my expectations for how the rest of the semester is going to go. I sort of have hinted at some minor changes in announcements and emails on Piazza. I'm going to sort of summarize a lot of that here. Okay, so Week 12, we come to the usual spot on the website. So not going to be a lot of video this week, mostly just this one. Within the reading here, I've posted some external videos that I think do a pretty good job of explaining the concepts of the week, so I'm not going to sort of add on to any of those. And also, the quiz this week is sort of very minor. It's a quick one. We're just checking a couple things. Frankly, writing questions about these particular topics is both not easy, and then I think the types of questions that I can write are not testing things that I think are all that important. So I'm trying not to emphasize this particular quiz all that much. Also, if you're a graduate student registered for one of the 4-hour sections, be aware that this quiz 10 has been released. You have until the very last day of class, excluding finals, time to do this quiz, but just want you to be aware of it now. If you're an undergraduate, register for 3 hours. This quiz does nothing for you, but you're welcome to check it out on PrairieLearn and try it. I think there's a couple good questions in there. Right. This reading, I actually think these are fairly good readings. These two in particular really get to the main idea of the week, so I sort of have them outside of this reading here, mostly because I just found them. Right. So the other thing I was going to say is we're sort of at an inflection point in the semester where so far the things we've talked about are sort of like very basic or like very nitty gritty details of some of these methods. So this week is still sort of about details, but the concept from this week I'm going to come back to again as we shift to doing analysis. In other words, using these methods in a much more practical way. Which I ultimately think is kind of more important. And to that end, I want to now talk about the remainder of the semester. So something you may have noticed is by inserting this sort of pseudo break in the middle here, I had to do away with an assignment. And the assignment that I've done away with is the third analysis. So basically, you don't need to do anything. Everyone's just getting full credit for that. So nothing to worry about there. Right. And then so due dates have been shifted around a little bit. If we have a look at the syllabus real quick, I think it's here, deadlines. So here are the deadlines for the two analyses. I'm working on getting those released as soon as possible, but sort of as always, you'll have at least a week to do it. And I actually haven't decided this, but there'll probably be some sort of late buffer thing. But that said, I really want to stress this. These are not projects. I think, it would be nice from my perspective as an instructor to make them a project and very much be, really grade you on, are you doing things right? But this weird thing happens when I do projects like that in a class like this, where what happens is the students who stick to the most basic methods and don't try anything interesting and don't sort of like go out and try to like research a new method or something, sort of just end up with good grades because they followed maybe the obvious steps from the class. And then the students that are sort of more creative or more adventurous end up like going out and trying some method and not quite getting it right and then losing points. I want to avoid this. I want to encourage you to try things, be wrong, and really just have an opportunity to play around with these analyses I'm going to assign without having to worry about your grade too much. So the specific mechanics and policies around that I'll obviously release with them, but for all intents and purposes, these are going to be more or less graded on completion. I might have a few specific rubric items that I put in there. Mostly just to cut down on the logistics of the grading, like make sure you format it a certain way so it's easier for us to know what's going on. But beyond that, it's going to be largely completion based. Now, to that end, what I think is more instructive in doing these analyses is not, you checking off very specific items on a rubric. It's more about you trying something and then, us as instructors giving you feedback. The trouble with that is to do that right with 90 people would just be almost untenable, right? Because to give you what I feel is the correct amount of feedback on this, I would realistically need to sit down and have a half-hour meeting with every one of you and go through line by line your code and every conclusion you've drawn and really scrutinize them. Obviously, unfortunately, we just can't do that. There's only so much time in the day, and as much as I would love to do that, and I think it would be highly instructive, we can't do that. Now, if there's interest in that kind of thing, please come to office hours. And, if enough people are asking me enough questions, one, you'll get answers to those questions, but two, it might push me to rethink that. But ultimately, my strategy for doing this, that is getting you good feedback on these analyses, is going to be to do them myself, or at least one of them. I'm sort of more interested in one than the other, and we'll circle back to that. But so what I plan on doing is having a series of in-depth videos showing not just my result, but me working through the analyses, showing you the steps I do, showing you how I code it. And that will sort of serve as some feedback in that, like, I'm going to show you specifically how I would have done this. Now, is that perfect? No. But I think it's sort of the best in between we can have to accomplish my goal of really showing you some of the inner workings of actually putting these methods into practice in a practical data analysis situation. Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to tell you what's coming in a way that'll hopefully make you not worry about these things. Also, if you look at the way the grading structure in the course breaks down, the analyses are a very small part of your grade. Grades are very high already, so through the quizzes and the exams, a lot of people have more or less secured their grade already, and as long as you sort of turn in something for the analyses, you'll probably be fine. About that, so with respect to me releasing some content for the analyses, I'll probably do a thing where I do a mixture of some of, like, me showing you my analysis, probably some of it before the due date, probably some of it after the due date, to I think better use it as a feedback mechanism by showing you some things ahead of time. I think that'll give you stuff to think about while you're doing it, but then you have to make some decisions on your own, and then I'll show you the rest of it after the deadline, and you can kind of use that as like a feedback mechanism. I'm still thinking about that, but that's kind of how I'm considering it. I'm also probably going to do a few videos here and there on sort of like high-level summary of the course with respect to how you would put these methods into practice. And a lot of those videos, and a lot of that is going to be, in my opinion, there's like a whole secondary class that could exist here. Okay, so now that you have all the basics down, let's only talk about practical applications. Now, as much as I'd love to try to condense that into 2 weeks of a course, that's just not possible. So I'm probably going to, write up some things that have a bunch of external resources, like, hey, if you're interested in this aspects of practicality, go look at this. Like, if you're interested in feature engineering, here's some reading there. If you're interested in pre-processing of data through unsupervised learning, here's some reading on that, and so on and so forth. Because there's a million different topics, but I want to maybe more so try to arrange those in a big picture and say, like, here's something you need to consider, here's resources for it. Here's another thing you need to consider, here's resources for it, and so on and so forth, rather than, trying to cram a whole another course into 2 weeks here. This week 15 would be when analysis 2 is due. I will probably release some resources about unsupervised learning in that particular week, but that's not going to be tested in a quiz or anything like that. That's going to be more just an FYI for you. But I should note that the Department of Statistics at University of Illinois now, we have a dedicated course on unsupervised learning. It's currently a Stat 430, a topics course, but I imagine that might become its own course later on. But I do believe this course is, it might only be running once a year, but that is something that exists now. I should also note there's other follow-up courses in machine learning. We now have a deep learning course that's also a 430. Yeah, I think that's it at the undergrad level, and there's always 542 at the graduate level for a more in-depth, more theoretical version of what we did here. Starting to ramble a bit, so I'm going to try to bring this back. Okay, so right. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what we're going to be doing the rest of the semester. It's going to be a little different. You won't be using Prayer anymore. You'll like the analyses. You'll ultimately need to write up some code, throw it in our Markdown document, and submit it somewhere, probably Compass. But again, the logistics of all that I'll release, by next Monday at the latest. But I just wanted to reassure you that this is not some sort of, oh, now it's the end of the semester, really hard project that's going to eat up all my time. No, it's something that in my mind, like if you have a lot of time to spend on it, please do, because I'd love to, hear questions in office hours. But, if you have a lot of stuff going on in another class and you need to focus on that, by all means, just do what you can for the analyses, turn it in, get your completion grade, and move on. I don't, I don't want to add any stress to anyone's life right now. I imagine this is, either this semester or last semester was one of the worst ones you're going to have in terms of, things outside of academics affecting your academics. So, take that for what it is, and hopefully completion grading will help you out a little bit with that. As much as I wish, everyone spent all their time on my course and this is what they studied, 100% of the time, I understand you have 4 other courses. And if you want to, put in a little less time on mine to spend time there, by all means, I understand. And I certainly did things like that as a student myself. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it. Please ask questions about this quiz on Piazza if there's anything weird or anything that's unclear based on the reading and videos that are posted inside of here. Some of the questions, honestly, if I were going to rate the quizzes in this class, quiz 9 would be my least favorite. I don't think it's particularly great. So do ask questions if things are unclear. But hopefully it's only 4 questions, although they're not the easiest. But hopefully you can knock that out quickly, and then we'll start talking about analyses next week. So that's it. I really, I'm probably rambling too much. Okay, so that's it. Hopefully, maybe I'll see y'all in office hours coming up, especially when we get to the analyses. And then, as always, if you made it to the end of the video, good job.